let me start with the operating model. So when we from my experience, when I have discussion about outsourcing in Nepal, uh, there is always a discussion of some kind of vendor model. There are actually two models of outsourcing. One is vendor models. The other one is integrated resources. So in the past, it may be that actually outsourcing in India, in other locations, started as a vendor model. But recently, what is happening now, CFO is an example. The vendor model is being consolidated at higher level. And a lot of actually outsourcing now we see, they are actually integrated models. And there will be regional players because some of the vendor models have been concentrated in India. So in the future, as we develop in Nepal, maybe we will have concentration of vendor models in Nepal. But this moment of time, I don't think we are there yet. So at larger scale, a smaller scale, yes, we can have vendor models when we are actually dealing with smaller accountancy practices. But at larger level, we are not there yet. So we have to actually perfect integrated solution method. In terms of what is the trigger? So the cost actually doesn't actually feature first. The trigger is the requirement of a capacity, capability. That's where it always starts. So once actually there is a requirement for capacity, then obviously locations are considered. So you have got all your traditional metrics, availability of talent and trainability, like your security and confidentiality, and what kind of actually the quality architecture is possible. You're like in standardization, working papers, review layers, and that kind of thing, and the continuity and resilience. So yeah, obviously we talked about actually Nepal having talent, but I want to add to that. So why we have talent and what kind of talent we have. And this is all coming from my experience. We came to Nepal about more than 10 years ago. We started with 5 people here. Now we have got 95. So when we came to Nepal, outsourcing, it wasn't actually a word which featured in any kind of discussion. So this profession, the accountancy profession in Nepal is still regarded as a very prestigious profession. And I have to thank ICANN to actually maintain that prestige. And what happens if it is a prestigious profession, then top talent will attract to that. And that has happened. So when I actually compare, so if Western world, whether Europe or America, accountancy profession is not top choice profession anymore. But Nepal, it still is. When we actually talk about this profession in Europe and America, maybe we are attracting talent at this level. But here we are attracting talent at that level. So obviously talent at that level in any part of the world must be better than talent at that level. So what hasn't happened is that those talents haven't had the exposure. That's where we are behind. So now what we need to do is, obviously as the industry grows, there will be a lot more exposure and talent will grow naturally. But having said that, I think we need to actually do something from beginning, from student and training days. And few things which have been highlighted. One is the obviously business communication. And I'm not necessarily talking about the English language, because language is learned in context. For example, so by profession, I am tax advisor and I do a lot of restructuring work. And that's the context I learned English language. And I still struggle, like when actually I have to actually use English in social context. Yeah. So I think the important message here is, so we learn English, but when actually it comes to work environment, business environment, we are not using that language. So we don't have the experience of English in that context. And now, as far as the cost side is concerned, now, At the end, like when there are a few jurisdictions identified, cost becomes a factor, definitely. But most of the time, what actually I have seen is the cost is looked at whether actually it is a facilitator. And so we don't necessarily actually list down all possible jurisdiction and thereafter, okay, this is the lowest cost. It doesn't happen in that way. But actually, what is important in that context is something which is not talked about is the familiarity. So I'm the only Nepalese partner in my firm. And 10 years ago, we faced some recruitment challenge in the UK and we were exploring. So we went to India as well. We tried something over there initially for a few months. And we tried the vendor model and we quickly realized that's not going to work for us. Actually, it has to be integrated resourcing. So we need to actually have our own presence so that we can model it the way as per our requirement. So in terms of actually setting it up, we thought, okay, so obviously we had a choice because we already had some experience in India. So choice between India and Nepal. But we decided to come to Nepal. Why? Because of my familiarity to Nepal. So now we need to actually think if so from actually the industry's perspective, how we actually make this industry in Nepal familiar to like the businesses who don't have that kind of familiarity. So far what you have seen is actually that the industry was in effect started by people of Nepalese origin working abroad. So that's how it started. But we need to actually expand that familiarity. And it is happening because especially in the UK, there is actually a lot of talk. And with time and especially after election, those discussions will pick up. And I just want to actually add one thing, presence of now CFO and other organization, and now Zenedin brand. Zenedin is a top 16 accountancy firm in the UK by revenue. It's got more than 2,500 staff. So that kind of brand being in Nepal will add to that familiarity. If I have got time, I would like to actually add one more thing in terms of professional knowledge. Now, professional knowledge is, in my view, is knowledge which has been verified to the highest possible authority. But unfortunately, what has happened over a period of time, and it applies to everywhere, not an old profession, not Nepal, and not just accountancy practice. What has happened is actually that has actually, in a way, gone away. And most of the time, what we call professional knowledge is like what actually we learn from the senior, what we heard somewhere, and what we read in commentary. Well, we need to change that. We need to actually change the style of training now. If we do now, we will be ready to capitalize on changes which are coming. And it will be opportunity for us rather than the threat. So we really need to think about the training, the education, and how we do work, what we discuss, how we discuss. So all of that needs change now.